What's going on, guys? Simple Sports back. Very eventful Sunday yesterday. Very fun, exciting day. My Titans got a win over the Eagles. Big time win at home. Mariota comes up clutch. Jarrell Casey was just having his way with the Eagles line for the most part of that game. Harold Landry as well. Very impressed by my Titans. Very impressed by a lot of things. And I want to start with Baker Mayfield. So he lost, or the Browns lost, I guess I should say. And, I really don't care about that. He's a rookie. Playing in Cleveland, he's going to lose a lot, right? Certainly to start. And so no worries there. He looked like a rookie. He played like a rookie. It was as simple as that. He looked pretty sharp at times, and he looked like he could make some pretty great throws. In fact, he made some pretty great throws, and he also made some pretty bad throws and some pretty bad decisions. And you can see the poor ball security. That's an issue that needs to be worked on. Overall, I like him. I think he can win some games for the Browns this year. For me, really didn't move the needle one way or the other at all. He's pretty much right where I thought he would be so far. I thought the offense would look better, a lot better than it did. And I thought that he'd make some mistakes because, it's the NFL. Like that's what rookies do. That's what young players do. That's what all players do, honestly. Even Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, all these guys make mistakes. Drew Brees makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. So people overreact to that stuff, and I don't know. They're just buzzwords to me. But overall, I liked where he was. Like I said, he looked pretty sharp. I want to see how he does in really cold weather because Cleveland, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and if you do make the playoffs, maybe you're talking about going down to Tennessee, where it's still cold, and it can get pretty nasty down there. You're talking about maybe going to New England, maybe having to go to Kansas City. So I do want to see how he fares in cold weather as we get later into the season. If they are in contention for the playoffs, that'll be a big issue. Or I shouldn't say it'll be a big issue, but it'll be a big litmus test, at least for me, from a distance. But from this game, didn't really move the needle, like I said, one way or the other. He had some classic turnovers. He also had a couple of turnovers that I didn't think were necessarily his fault. And, as time goes on, if he cleans that up and they have a couple less drops and as few drops as possible, obviously every team would like to have that. But he looked good enough for me to give him a thumbs up for the first start. So all good there. A lot of defensive mistakes by the Browns, but, mistakes in coverages and assignments can be fixed. I wasn't necessarily concerned with those. Every team has those from week to week. What concerned me yesterday was how dominant Marshawn Lynch looked at that defense versus that defense. And, he was really, really impressive. And he was running to hurt people. 130 yards rushing, 130 bruising, hard, tough yards. And that matters because when you get late into the season, like I said, it gets cold. And that's something that's really tough to deal with. And if they can't deal with Marshawn Lynch, there's other teams that run the football pretty well in the AFC. Teams like Jacksonville, teams like Tennessee, although Tennessee's kind of wet the bed running the ball lately with Derrick Henry. Granted, the Eagles' run defense is pretty good, so it could be some of that. All the run defenses they've played have been pretty good, but that is a real thing. And so I'd be interested to see if that's something that pans out over the course of the season, if that defense is going to be that soft against the run, because Marshawn Lynch was just putting his head down and just mauling people, and they weren't having it. And I can only imagine that in, 10, 15, 20-degree weather. It is not going to be fun. So we'll see if that comes into play. That's the only thing I have questions about for him overall to this point. Like I said, I thought he looked sharp enough so far as a rookie. We'll see how it progresses over the season, but much, much better than where they've been over the last couple of years. I think that is safe enough for all of us to say. Hey, the Dallas Cowboys, they finally did it. Ha! They finally got a win. I guess the second win. And what do you know? You take the ball out of Dak's hands and you put the ball in Zeke's hands, 25 carries, 152 yards, and to absolutely no one's surprise, Zeke has his best game of the year, and Dak, as a result, has his best game of the year. Folks, football isn't super complicated at the end of the day. Sometimes it's the obvious answer. Nick Wright said this on First Things First not that long ago, and in fact, I guess it was on Monday before the game, Friday before the game, and for once I agree with him. Sometimes the obvious answer is the best answer, and Zeke is the best player on that team, bar none. Give him the football. Period in the story. It's that simple. And it results in a W. He gets 25 carries, and it results in a W. And that doesn't even include the passing game that he was involved in. Obviously, the big play at the end of the game. The issue or the question is, can they commit to this? Or more, will they? My advice is they better, because they have a big problem still. Even with Zeke's effort yesterday, this one came down to the wire against the Lions, who for me have played their Super Bowl against, with Matt Patricia against the Patriots. That was an anomaly. Make no mistake about it. They're terrible defensively. Offensively, I think they're fine. But anyway, Cole Beasley is their number one receiver. Or, I guess take your pick. Who else you want to take? They're all pretty much they are just guys. Cole Beasley, Gallup, Tavon Austin, who I think now is hurt. What? Who are these people? No offense, because they're all better than me. But, come on, man. Relatively speaking, it is not exactly a who's who of wide receivers, for sure. Somebody at some point has got to make a play down the field. And, even the Ravens had Shannon Sharp, big play Shea, as he says, on Undisputed. And, don't kid yourselves. The Lions aren't very good, okay? And quite frankly, neither the Cowboys. For any of you who think that this was salvation or some form of hope for them, all this did was extend their lifeline by another week, okay? Because the Lions are just not good. But 17 for 27, 255 yards, and they were all celebrating like they just won a playoff game. Can they do that against the Rams or the Eagles or the Vikings or, I don't know, the Redskins maybe even? Who else is out there that I'm not thinking of? The Bears. Can they do that against any of those teams? Green Bay? No, man. Not without at least one more playmaker on offense. And, Dez Bryant is still out there. That's an upgrade, no doubt. Sometimes you got to swallow your pride, Jerry Jones. And listen, say what you want about how they have looked so far. They are still in the fight, and they may need to plunge here, because if you bring him back, you at least got one guy that can go up and get a jump ball on some play action off of Zeke if they run the ball like this. Now, granted, the Lions' run defense is pretty piss poor, but if you can bring him back, now at least you got a guy that can win a jump ball, maybe down the field or in the red zone. And if you can run the ball to set up play action for Dez Bryant down the field, I don't know, maybe that's something they got to take a chance on, because they have an opportunity in front of them with the division looking the way it is. The Eagles lost, the Redskins play next week. It's still available for them to be in the top spot, and they need a playmaker outside of Zeke, and right now they don't have it, and Dak is not it. He's not it. All right, sound the alarm. Pittsburgh is officially a dumpster fire. Big Ben looks garbage. He looks terrible. He looks like he should have retired. I would not be surprised if the Steelers move away from him next year. James Conner looks like an average running back at absolute best. And they don't throw to AB enough, and AB isn't exactly humble about it, and I don't necessarily blame him for feeling that way, but now he's just throwing gas on an already blazing hot mess that is the Steelers. Big Ben is stinking up the joint, and they need Le'Veon Bell, clearly. The defense is some Swiss cheese, and there's just noise everywhere. And I'm all the way out on the Steelers, so much so that I'm done talking about them. And finally, the Eagles versus the Titans. My Titans got a big win, and I think we all need heart pills after this one, like Mike Vrabel said. It was really nice to see Mariota play well, especially when it counted. Titans trailed by 14 in the third, as well as by 3 in overtime, and responding both times was really, really nice to see. In fact, the last 3 weeks have been incredible. Between the game plan and the heart that they've showed to somehow find a way to get the wins, that's what I've been most impressed by. They still are going underrated, under the radar, which is fine for me. I wish they got a little more respect because they are looking like a pretty formidable team at this point, especially if Mariota can play like he did on Sunday, minus that one bad throw on the pick. He was pretty darn good, and he had a couple of drop passes. And he missed a couple of throws, no doubt, but he was pretty good yesterday, I have to admit. And it was nice to see that because it's been needed for a long time. He's been hurt. He hurt his elbow in week 1, and, in terms of health, he at least looked like 100%. I don't know how he exactly felt. He kind of brushed off the question about the hand after the game, so he looked fine for me. 30 for 43, 344 yards. 2 touchdowns and a pick, and the pick was, like I said, it was a pretty bad pick. I don't know if there was a missed route or what. The ball just sailed. Whatever happened, it was obviously a bad pick. And other than that, I thought he looked pretty good. He's money when it counts the most. And for those of you who don't know, he has 41 touchdowns in the red zone. 41 passing touchdowns and not a single interception in the red zone in his career. Let me say that again. Not one interception in his career. That's impossible. And he also now has 11 game-winning touchdown drives when he's healthy. I think he's pretty good, and he's gutsy and cold-blooded. Corey Davis had his breakout performance, and I think that will continue. I hope that will continue. We need it to continue. And he was a top pick for a reason. And for whatever reason, last year he couldn't get going, but so far this year has been the go-to guy, especially with Delaney Walker being hurt. In addition to that, I can't say enough about the defense. Jarrell Casey absolutely wrecked the Eagles' offense at times, especially in the first half. Same for Harold Landry. The bend on his edge rush is incredible, how low he gets to the ground. It reminds me a lot of Von Miller, to be honest. Not the biggest guy, but his technique is sound. And there were times where Casey was just tossing Jason Peters around like a pinball. And Malcolm Butler scares me still. But for some reason, I want him in the game, right? Because you just trust him mentally. Maybe I'm crazy. He seems to get burned a lot, but for some reason, I also still want him in the game because there's just something about having guys like that mentally. I don't know. I don't know who else you're going to put in there. LaShawn Sims got burned for a touchdown, so I don't know where else you're going to go there. So far, he's gotten burned a couple of times, but like I said, I don't know what else you're going to do with the DBs that they got. The rest of the crew, I think, is pretty solid, but LaShawn Sims and then who else after that as far as corners go. So, also, a huge shout-out to the coaching staff. I wasn't sold on Vrabel coming into the season. I've said that before. But I am 100% sold. I've been flipped. I am a believer. All of them I have more trust in as the season goes on. But Vrabel and LaFleur have put their weapons in places to succeed on offense. They've put their quarterback in a place to succeed early on in the season, especially the last 3 games, not the most recent one, but the first 3. The Hurricane game where they almost had a chance to win that game still, and then the 2 after that with the quarterback situation being what it was, calling the plays that they called, and putting the team in situations that they did. It was incredible, and not enough credit goes to them for them being 3-1. And on defense as well, they empower their players and they show trust. And you see the rookie on Harold Landry on the rush, on the outside edge, along with Arakpo and the rest of those guys. Couple of gutsy play calls already this season, between the fake punts and the 4th down conversions and all that stuff, and even more of those yesterday. And the offense looks a lot more explosive now, especially with Mariota getting back to 100%. He looked explosive running the ball as well, and doesn't look afraid. He's not afraid to run it and not afraid to get dirty yards either. I want him to be careful because I don't want him to get hurt. He's pretty good at avoiding contact for the most part, avoiding big hits. He also sometimes ducks out a little early, but it's kind of I'd rather him duck out early than late. So I'm willing to forego it for now. I think their defense is underrated. But, again, big time win for me with them versus the Eagles. I think that sent a statement to the league that they have arrived, and I think they're a pretty good team. I think people are underestimating them. They'll take credit away and say the Eagles aren't that good and the Super Bowl hangover and all that stuff. And what are you going to do about it? But it is what it is. The one thing that does concern me is that Mariota was the leading rusher. Derrick Henry is not very nimble in that 3-yard box around the line of scrimmage. He's just not nimble enough, I don't think. I think if he gets outside or if he gets ahead of steam, headed straight up the middle, it's a wrap. But if there's any penetration in the backfield, any deep cutbacks or anything like that, it's just, I don't know. He always seems to get brought down in the backfield, first contact. But like I said, if he gets out in the open, it's a wrap. And we're going to need him to be a little bit better running in between. It sounds crazy to say, right? But in between the tackles, it's hard. That sounds weird to say. We need Derrick Henry to be better in between the tackles. But just at first glance, like I said, it seems like every time there's penetration, and again, it's hard to run when there's penetration in the backfield. But I see guys all the time able to sort of get loose. I mean, we see Deion Lewis all the time within that box, take contact, and is still able to make guys miss. So that's the only thing that concerns me so far. He struggles so far. He has struggled so far to get moving at the line of scrimmage. But some of that has to be attributed to the Eagles because Deion Lewis also went 4 carries for 0 yards. So I just didn't see him be as elusive as I thought he was last year at least. But maybe that just comes with getting into the flow of the season and into the flow of the offense. So not overly concerned with it, but it is definitely in the back of my mind. All right, so all things considered, all things being said, I was pretty happy with the level of competition and the level of play we saw in the games. Very happy with Tennessee and their outcome, obviously, getting the win, 3-1 at the top of the AFC. It's nice to actually see them be productive and be a good team for a change. They've been so bad for so long that it's nice to be finally rewarded and hopefully continue. Last year they had some success and got a playoff win. Maybe this year with the Patriots possibly struggling a little bit. We don't know. I think they're going to be fine, but we'll see how it plays out long term. Jacksonville doesn't look like the world beaters they did last year. I'm already out on Pittsburgh. Kansas City looks pretty good, but that defense is suspect as well. So I don't know. You never know. Maybe this could be their year. We'll see. But with that being said, that's all I got for today. Stay tuned. Tomorrow I will be amending my preseason predictions. So talking about division winners and whatever playoff wildcard teams that I come up with. So stay tuned for that. I will be making some significant changes to my preseason predictions. But in the meantime, you guys take it easy. Peace.
Polo to the flow though. You already know though. It's Adamville for real. You see a hoe, just take a photo. I'm reppin' as on photo with a fofo on your bro though.